Welcome to Extra AI, the podcast where we extract the raw conversations behind artificial intelligence from research labs to enterprise boardrooms. I'm your host, Raghu Banda, and today marks a special milestone, our 150th episode of Extra AI. Over the years, this series has explored the pulse of AI innovation, and this episode is no exception. Joining me today is Abhi Shivaditya, a visionary leader at the intersection of AI architecture and enterprise transformation. I'm my co-author on our upcoming joint white paper, Agentic Blueprint for Enterprises. And together, we dive deep into the next frontier of enterprise AI, the rise of agentic systems, where intelligent agents don't just assist, but collaborate, orchestrate, and transform how organizations function. In this milestone episode, we'll unpack how concepts like OpenToolResourceDiscovery, OTRD, Model Context Protocol, MCP, and hyperscaler-agnostic architectures are shaping the AI native enterprise of 2030. This is not just a conversation about technology, it's about reimagining enterprise intelligence, agility, and autonomy for the decade ahead. Let's get going.
All right, welcome back to our Extra AI podcast series on AI and machine learning applications. And today, there is a very interesting topic I'm going to do with a friend, Mr. Abhi. So, Abhi will give a little background, but I think the topic today we are going to discuss is around the agentic blueprint for enterprises. This is a very interesting aspect. I think now we are talking a lot about agents and agentic workflows and all. So Abhi had this idea of writing a white paper on this. So he initiated that white paper, and I also contributed towards that, and we jointly releasing that pretty soon in the Q4. Over to you, Abhi. Provide me some quick thoughts around your background.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Raghu. First of all, thank you for inviting me to this platform. Uh, I think we've been discussing this since last year, so it's finally happening, and I'm really glad to be here. Thank you for this. And my name is Abhi Shivaditya. I'm a principal solutions architect at AWS, Amazon Web Services. Been in the industry for about a decade and a half. Started with core networking background. I was working on Wi-Fi access points and 802.11 spec. So if any of you in the audience go to an airport or a hotel and you try to connect to the Wi-Fi, the free Wi-Fi, usually there's a splash page or some sort of accept conditions or maybe make some payments. That is the initial workflow that you have to go through before you get full access to the internet. So that was one of the first features that I worked on. Although if you ask my wife, she always complains that, hey, it's not working on my machine. What's wrong with you? Why did you not do it correctly? And I can take the blame for that. But that's where my roots are coming from, a networking background. Then I switched to technical enterprise architecture for a good part of my career. And then, as part of that experience, this was specifically with SAP, I realized that the cloud is becoming even more, increasingly more important as we go forward. Then I moved to this current role in AWS, focusing on distributed systems, on networking, on in an AWS context. And then for the past few years, couple of years, I'm focusing on AI/ML topics. And since we all know the world is changing quite rapidly with large language models and now with agentic systems cropping up, lots to learn. And frankly, I'm finding it hard to keep up. And through initiatives like the white paper that we did together, Raghu, it's a motivating factor or a driving function for me to learn myself. So that's a little bit of a background and context about where I'm coming from.
Great, great. I think great background there, Abhi. And then, yeah, it was great working with you on the white paper too. Before getting into that, the white paper and some of the concepts around AI agents, looking back, is there a defining project or an experience where you first realized the transformative power of AI or the potential of AI or AI agents in enterprise settings? Because I know the year of 2025, we are talking a lot about agents.
Yeah, agents are quite new, relatively new.
Right.
And I would say the expectations are sky high.
Right.
There is value, there is definite value in this space, but the expectations are so high that it becomes a little bit. Uh, I would almost say my day job is to reduce expectations, to be honest. So with that, there are a few things, and at least one that comes to mind, and it comes from my own personal experience. I was basically in a coffee shop, and I was reading about this was the initial days of ChatGPT, I think,
Mm-hmm.
a few months after it just came out. And this was really giving me some very good practical guidance about some of the things I was trying to understand at the time. I don't remember exactly what I was searching for, but I was surprised at how easily it was able to give me practical guidance. And that, from my personal life, that is where I would say was the turning point for me in that coffee shop. I would say I wanted to just understand how this thing was built, the
Mm-hmm.
ChatGPT application. Got into the nitty gritties of it. At the time, I think they had OpenAI had open sourced GPT-2,
Right.
and I had luckily, since I'm working in AWS, I have access to the entire cloud platform for my own testing and for my own learning.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to download that GPT-2, the free one, which was open source at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and just play around with it. And I was just astounded how this thing was able to construct really coherent natural language responses. It wasn't very accurate. GPT-2
Right.
wasn't accurate, but the English and the grammar and the syntax was so surprising and appealing to me. I would say that was the turning point for me, where I realized, okay, this is going to have far-fledged implications, especially in an enterprise context. Um, so if I had to think of one, I'd say that one for sure.
And I think we've come a long way from there now.
For
Believe
sure.
with not only text but also images, videos, and of course all other things. And of course, we are going to talk about that. So to start with, I know in the white paper we talk about enterprises struggling with a lack of clear definition of agents, right? I think not only enterprises, right? I think even to the layman, I think this definition of agents, how do you from personally define an agent in the enterprise context? I will not go into the consumer oriented context, but I think in the enterprise context, let us kind of get in there.
Yeah, again, the definition of agents is something that's debatable. For me, any 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 software that has a goal, an ultimate goal, but does not have a defined path.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
path may be ambiguous. There might be corner cases, there might be situations that as a human we cannot anticipate. But the
Hmm.
goal is clear. The goal is defined. If a software or an application or a service, using whatever tools, using whatever engines, let's call them, in this case, it's large language models, but using whatever tools that are available, if it's able to navigate that ambiguous path to get to that goal,
Hmm.
for me, that's an agentic application. And that's building it hard. Talking about it is easier, building it is harder for
Right,
sure.
right.
But as per the definition, I would say that is that makes a lot of sense to me. And of course, there would be different versions of the definition. And as time goes on, I'm sure we'll crystallize it even more. But at this point, I can visualize the process this way.
Right, right. I completely echo with your thoughts. I think this is where I think even for me, that aha moment about agents happened a few months back, I believe sometime like Q2 of this year. I'm a big fan of attending these conferences or late evening conferences and summits here, living since we are living in the Bay Area, and there's so much of knowledge and so much of chatter going on about. And one of those sessions I came, and there is this gentleman who was talking about agents. He started his presentation putting a big number out there, 60 million plus. And he was asking, what is this? People were giving all kinds of answers. Somebody told agents. And he said, yes, meaning that many number of agents are being built across the globe. 60 million plus, that's a humongous number. So when you're talking about saying that application, right, I think the way you're explaining, like finding a path, right, I think an unknown path. So in future, any application can become an agent. So that is how things are being built into an application where AI features are being embedded in. So that really kept me triggered. That really triggered me. And then, of course, we started putting together this. So now thinking about that, I know enterprises and ISVs need to start preparing for this kind of agentic workflows now rather than waiting until these technologies are standardized, right? So I think for me, it came from that mindset saying that, hey, there are a lot of ISVs or enterprises or small and medium businesses working on these agents or agentic workflows. Could you talk a bit about that? I think, what are your thoughts, I think, about how these things are going on?
Yeah, as I said, I think if we were to define an ISV, you mentioned the term ISV.
Right, right.
So, to me, it's any software developer, software provider. It could be SAP, it could be Salesforce, it could be anyone who's providing a software for their own customers. That to me is an ISV. And if you are in this space, you are definitely working on quote unquote agentifying or LLMizing your services, your product that you already have. And I think the software providers or ISVs who can successfully do so are the ones that will remain. And I think if you think back to the command line, the MS-DOS days,
Right, right.
That was very powerful at the time. And then Xerox came up with the GUI.
Right.
Right. That was a transition which scaled it out even more.
Right.
And it's not that the command line went away, just that it became secondary. We still use command line for a lot of our purposes for certain requirements, but the GUI is the primary interface today.
Right.
And I think with the ISVs of tomorrow, this primary interface of point and click, the GUI, or a scroll and click on a mobile app will change as well with agentic applications. It will move more towards voice. It will move more towards natural language. And I feel that is the future of agentic. And there's a lot of ways to build that, a lot of ways to move towards that. And I think that's inevitable in my mind. So talking to your applications is going to be the way that our customers expect to interact with these applications, whether it's over voice or whether it's over a chat-based application, where it's basically talking with your application, as opposed to pointing and clicking. And I think that is going to be the paradigm shift going forward.
Right, right. I know you are a big proponent of voice. I think I know we've been talking in my earlier conversations with you as well. You've been bringing a lot about the voice-driven approach, which is pretty soon going to happen. Now we are still in a lot more of the text driven or natural language driven. So I know where you're coming in from, right? I think we moved from if you talk about this DOS world or the transactional world, for example, in SAP, it is like the SEAT transactional world to uh, user interface, dashboarding world to analytics. Now we are moving to this conversational world, right? In conversational world, and from there we are getting into voice-driven world. So in all these, so there is a shift happening, right? This is like the last 30, 40 years, we have seen these shifts happening. From your perspective, I think doing a lot of thinking and research we do on a regular basis, and of course we have done it for the white paper too. How will the shift to agentic systems change the relationship between humans, the humans who are working, and the enterprise software? Because there's going to be a lot of, already there is a lot of conversations and discussions about that, but what are your thoughts, I think, coming from this background?
Yeah, there's a lot of uh, rumors and fear that, hey, our jobs going to be the same? What's going to happen, right? And I think that's what you are alluding to with your question. Um, I feel like there are a lot of things that can be automated in a human life with the help of these agentic applications, whether natural language, text-based, or voice-based. So if you think about any human's uh, day in a life of their work day, typically it's the 80-20 rule. 80% of the work might be repetitive, might be grunt work, might be something that, in my mind, I like to think of it as you have to do the 80% to earn the 20%,
Right.
right? To earn the good 20%, which is the exciting, the innovating, and the creative part of your day job. So the focus for me is if any of these applications help me fast forward the grunt work, the 80% of the work that all of us have to do,
Mm-hmm.
and help me open up, help me with getting to that top 20% faster, quicker, to me, that's a success. And I think that's how things will change. And this is a pattern that we've seen before as well, right?
True, true.
If it's the same thing, if you look at printing press, if you look at transportation, there's a little bit of a storming forming, but then ultimately we are focusing on the creative aspects
Right.
and the innovation aspects and reducing the grunt work, which has to be done to get to that top 20%.
Right, right. I think, yeah, you put it in a very nice way, like getting through that grunt work of 80% of the work so that you can focus more on the 20%. And then there is a lot of enormous potential of how and what other things we can do. I think, great. I think, yeah, having gone through that, now I want to get a bit more deeper into the paper and some of the aspects that we put into that, right? I think if we put in the paper, I think predominantly, I think from your thoughts, I think highlighting the complexity of microservices, right? Microservice environments with hundreds of service teams working in silos. So, what challenges do you see this is creating for enterprises while trying to implement agentic workflows? Maybe before getting there, could you explain your thought process about when you talk about microservice environments?
Yeah, absolutely. And now we're getting to slightly more technical aspects of the white paper.
Mm-hmm.
If whether you're part of a startup team or whether you're part of a very large enterprise, you will be working with other builders, other development teams. And if you're building it by yourself today,
Mm-hmm.
there will be a point in time where you will need to scale out to other people. So it's inevitable.
Right.
So we take a case of a fictitious enterprise or ISV or a software provider, which in the paper we've called as Octank ISV.
Mm-hmm.
This fictitious enterprise is the ideal business software provider of the year 2030.
Mm-hmm.
And this enterprise, what I've modeled it as, is having 200 global teams, sporadic teams spread across the globe.
Mm-hmm.
And each of the teams own anywhere between 2 to 15 features or 2 to 15 quote unquote services
Mm-hmm.
that ultimately form the Octank ISV product.
Okay.
And in this paper, we've defined the Octank ISV. Again, Octank ISV is a fictitious name. It's just
Fictitious
for the
name. Yeah.
purpose of having this case study
Right.
as part of the white paper. The product is focused on an order to cash business process.
Mm-hmm.
So these 200 plus development teams each own their individual microservices, which have their own code pipeline, which have their own release cycles that are independent of each other.
Mm-hmm.
So team A might have a sister team, team B, which is in a completely different geography, time zone, might be working on a different part of the product, different feature of the product, but it would need to integrate or it would need to communicate. Those two services would need to communicate with each other.
Communicate.
And this paradigm is not new. This
Yeah.
paradigm has been around for a long time with Kubernetes and microservices based deployments. The only addition is that this new agentic services,
Mm-hmm.
they're just like any other service. In my mind, they're not any different. They're just like any other service. It's just that they have a special flavor. A special flavor meaning these services, the agentic services, need to lean on these large language module engines,
Mm-hmm.
which takes a little bit of latency, it takes a little bit of effort and time,
Mm-hmm.
and of course, cost as well. But in terms of the larger, bigger picture, there's just another kind of service which each of these 200 teams need to adopt.
Right.
And it need not be an additional new service.
Mm-hmm.
It could be that an existing service or a feature might need to be molded or upgraded to have an agentic flavor to that feature. And there are tools that exist today. So LangChain, LangGraph, Strands SDK, these are frameworks that exist today that help you to create agentic services, agentic applications that actually make it very easy for these 200 plus teams. They don't have to start from scratch. A lot of the heavy lifting has already been done for them by these
Mm-hmm.
frameworks. So that they can actually work on the business requirements of that O2C or order to cash
Mm-hmm.
use case or scenario,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to think about the basics. How do I actually consume a large language model? It
Right.
involves a lot of technical things. It involves uh, deploying a serving stack, optimizing that serving stack. You
Mm-hmm.
might need to deploy it in a particular region for certain data residency requirements. You might need to work on swapping out your security keys every quarter or every year or every week based on your security requirements. These are a lot of basic activities that you have to do, which Amazon and these providers do that on your behalf.
Right.
So this Octank ISV ideal enterprise in the year 2030 would ideally have this completely decentralized microservices based environment
Mm-hmm.
where some of these services consume uh, large language models through providers like Amazon,
Mm-hmm.
using frameworks like Strands SDK, deploying on a compliant environment like SAP's BTP platform.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the typical examples that we can anticipate
Right.
for the year 2030. This is just the developer or the builder portion.
Right.
In any enterprise, there will also be a large number of non-technical folks, business-facing folks.
Mm-hmm.
You would have folks from the legal department. You would have folks that are focused on sales, who may not be hands-on building, who may not be hands-on keyboard or coding on a day-to-day basis. But their lives will also change. If you think about it, there's a lot of enterprise-specific information that would be part of the organization, the Octank ISV organization. It's not public information, it's enterprise specific or
Enterprise
Octank
specific.
ISV specific information.
Mm-hmm.
So having an internal version of, let's call it ChatGPT, that is only focused on our enterprise data
Mm-hmm.
should be made available to the legal folks, to let's say the HR folks, to the sales folks. If someone wants to ask a question about their enterprise policy, hey, am I allowed to expense this dinner for $400?
Mm-hmm.
That's very specific to Octane ISV, right? But today they would have to go into a wiki page, they would have to go and find out things on their own. Instead, they should have an internal version of ChatGPT, which they can type in into this natural language based interface, or even voice into it. You can ask it in, over verbally, and they should be able to get that answer. And Amazon provides a lot of tools to do that. Amazon Q for Business is exactly targeted to such scenarios. So having this type of a scenario is going to get quite common as we go forward in 2030, and that's what the paper talks about.
Beautiful, beautiful. I think you've nailed it completely about how the microservices environments work and how in these different sub environments and how all these things in the scenario of an order to cash scenario, how all these different sub environments or sub microservices would have to work together. Now, getting into the aspect of, we also discuss the need for the hyperscaler-agnostic solutions, right? I think because in the paper that also we've produced, right, mentioned that irrespective of, I know this agentic tank, a futuristic thing, fictitious company for 2030. This is how it is organized. But in the paper, we've also discussed about how it can also, if a process is spawning across organizations, there will be now inter-process agents that have to work together. I think even before the concept of MCP came up, I think you were already talking about some of these things in the while we were discussing. And then obviously it was good that the modal context protocol came out, and then we used concepts of that in the paper. And then of course, you also briefly, we were discussing about when we are discussing about communication, intercommunication outside of the other companies, the agents working in different companies, this is where the A to A agent comes into picture, right? I think for the audience, maybe can you elaborate it a bit more so that how we envisioned the aspects of the concepts of MCP and A to A in this fictitious world, or we are saying fictitious world, I think, but I think pretty soon it's going to be now. The next 4 to 5 years, things are going to be pretty soon.
It's actually already reality. So
Yes.
in order to understand MCP, Model Context Protocol, and A to A, agent-to-agent communication, we need to understand what makes these agents work.
Right.
Effectively, if you look at these large language models, all they do is they take in tokens, they take in words, and they spit out tokens or spit out words. That's all they can do.
Right.
And it hasn't changed. It's not going to change anytime soon. These tokens could be text, this could be images, pictures. They're tokenized, and that's effectively the input and output mechanism. But what makes these large language models agentic, or what can we do to make these large language models agentic, is their ability to execute APIs or execute actions through tools. And effectively, if you think about it, what we basically send into these large language models is a construct or the function signature or the API signature. And we teach it. It's literally as if pretending the LLM as a virtual intern that may be part of the team or the system. And you teach it that if you are asked a question about this particular scenario, normally we invoke this API or we invoke this action in our product to get to that answer. We literally provide a configuration, which is called a tool config,
right,
which in simple language, it is a mechanism to teach that particular large language model or that virtual intern. And this is what you can do if such and such questions have been asked to you. And what the large language model does is just outputs the filled function signature with the parameters, and it expects the framework or the service, the calling service, to execute that function as is. And that's where the Strands SDK and LangChain SDKs help automate some of those aspects. Now, these API actions, if you think about the 200 teams within Octank ISV, and then there are so many Octank ISV type similar companies, right? There's not one or two teams, it's thousands
Right.
and thousands of teams. They may be individually owning their own respective APIs or let's say data resources, and they may be working independently of each other.
Mhm.
And if they all organically try to create these actions or these tools for the respective agents, it might not be standardized. It might be difficult to integrate them both. It might be difficult to actually work with each other. Let's say Team A has built a tool or an agent which accesses the three or four tools that it owns, Team A's tools. It needs to be scalable enough to pick Team B's tools from a different geography, from a different time zone as
Mhm.
well, without knowing that it's been built independently of them. And that's where the model context protocol comes in, the MCP protocol comes in. It standardizes the way in which you can make tools or APIs available for these agentic applications to invoke actions, to do things in the application. And I think that's a very key paradigm. And I'm really glad that Anthropic came up with the MCP.
Right.
I'm not saying it's the best one, but it
But
is the
yeah.
one that is standardized, and it
Mhm.
is the one that everybody uses, and it's actually very easy to use as well.
Right.
It's something that is actually pushing the envelope when it comes to agentic systems.
Mhm.
Now, at the same time, you might want to have your agents talk to other agents
Mhm.
independent of each other who have been built by teams that are never talking to each other or might be hard to talk with each other. Or it might be from teams of a different company as well, across company boundaries. And there will be a situation where you need to do
Sure.
this. And in order to cache scenario that we shared in the white paper, if you think about it, let's say you have a customer who's ordered your product, and
Mhm.
you want to know which you know what is the tax implication of that particular order, or
Right.
where in the delivery is that particular product. So
Right.
the tax might be calculated by a different service, by a different team, or by a different part of the product. Or it
Mhm.
might actually be with a different third party company as well. There are lots of companies that calculate VAT and calculate tax and provide it as a bulk. So it might be something that Octank ISV does not have expertise in, but it leans on a separate third party product.
Mhm.
And that product might have agents. And that is a situation where A2A protocol will come in handy. And this is also a very interesting protocol. Of course, it's not necessary for you to use this product protocol all the time. It's
Mhm.
only based on the requirement. In fact, there is a pattern called agent as a tool,
Mhm.
where you can model a secondary agent as a tool to the first agent
Mhm.
and use MCP for that as well. And it works very well, works scales pretty well. But of course, you do have A2A as well. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a context on where MCP helps and where A2A helps,
Mhm.
and how teams can think about using them in an organization.
And beautifully, I think we laid out in the white paper, in the context of an order to cash scenario, how this fictitious agentic Octet 2030 ISV, we are able to have these many number of microservices teams and using these model context protocol or A2A protocols, and how these things are working together, will work together or working together, I think I would say. Now, taking this further, I think in your view, so I know this is getting very interesting, right? I think, what are those 2 3 business problems where enterprises can immediately see the ROI by adopting this kind of agentic AI, right? I think, do you see any practical or any kind of practical guidance that you could help? I think I know there are, unless until there is a lot of research and a lot of things going on out there, but I think, coming to that is the reason I think when we started this conversation, we are saying, like, in the enterprise world, things are different. End of the day, it always goes through that ROI, right? How do I make
Yeah,
it?
totally. Your question is very valid, right? We have all these new technologies, these scintillating magical technologies.
Mm-hmm.
Where do we actually use it to provide value to our customers, right? And I think The best way for customers or for software providers to provide value using this technology is practical guidance.
Mhm.
How do you want your customers to use your product? Your customers typically would uh, directly dive into your product and use their intuition, and you would have invested in your UX capabilities to make it as intuitive as possible.
Mhm.
Sometimes they might need to go into some product documentation, or they might need to look at some tutorial videos or hand holding mechanisms. That is where I think gives the biggest bang for your buck in building agentic applications. Any of your customers in a self-service mode should be able to go into your product's documentation, and
Mhm.
in the documentation page itself, ask in natural language, how do I do so and so things?
Right.
And I think that has a very, providing practical guidance to customers is, I think, the number one use case for agentic applications today.
Mhm.
Of course, a lot of practical guidance is in a lot of context, right? You can have customer support cases. You can have self-service guidance,
Mhm.
and then the second thing is communication help. I think
Mhm.
a lot of times, maybe the 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 language of communication in a business context may not be the first language or the mother tongue of the person,
Right.
right?
Right.
So for me, English is the second language.
Mhm.
But in my day-to-day work life, I am talking in English all the time.
Mhm.
And it's possible that when I talk to somebody from a different time zone, different country, different culture, what I think is the right way of saying something or the right way of communicating something may not be perceived in the same way from the other on the other side. So having these agentic applications or LLM-based applications translate uh, the message is also another place which I think is very interesting for folks to build their products around. And I think if you are a software provider to your customers, uh, uh, you need not use these agentic applications at runtime. You need not have an agentic feature that is
Mhm.
part of your application, but you can use these agentic capabilities to build your application such that it provides the maximum value to your customers.
Mhm.
So at design time itself, you might be able to gain a lot of value from these agentic applications, which you might build yourself or you might procure from a third party. Uh, so it's not necessary for you to build specifically the AI components of your system. You might use AI components to build a better system, which is
Mhm.
also very
Okay.
powerful.
Beautiful. I think I like the way you've put it, right? I think it's not just building, but you yourself can build it to make it even better. I think
Exactly.
you use some of
Exactly.
these AI features or agentic systems to even make your system better. You can even design better systems and then generate a lot more outcomes in a better way. I know I want to get to this aspect. It's a very interesting conversation. I know we are getting close to the end of the conversation, but I want to bring up this topic about the voice conversation, right? The voice aspect of it. I know you are a big proponent of voice, which is pretty. I also agree that sometimes you can easily, if you can easily talk to a system or talk to an application, um, you can get things much more faster. So we are I think there is a lot of experimentation, a lot of these things are happening here, right? I think how do you envision the future here of enterprise users working with agents on a daily basis, where it is a mix of not just the chat or human interaction, human natural language, but also voice, and also maybe in future maybe additional things too, additional senses too.
Yeah. The way I see it, if you can type into a chatbot, you should be able to speak into it.
Okay.
Uh,
It's very
and
powerful.
I feel the UX of the way people interact with software is going to change.
Hmm.
And I feel that voice is definitely the way to go. And as you can see, right? Like if you want to go from place A to place B,
Mm.
you need to know the modes of transport that are available. You can walk from place A to place B. You can take a bicycle. You can drive a car. You might be able to take a train or take a flight, right? But you need to know all the five, six options that are available to you.
Right.
But you need not use only option five, which is a flight all the time for place A to B. For certain situations, you might only need to use a car, right?
Mm. Mm.
So voice interface is just one of the options. It's not negating the chat interface. It's not negating the point and click interface or the scroll interface that we are familiar with. It's not
Mm.
negating even the command line. Command
Right.
line is not going to go away.
Right.
But it's one additional powerful interface that's now going to come into prominence.
Mm-hmm.
And my bet is that it will become the primary interface. So far, it's been the point and click and scroll interfaces that are primary for software applications,
Mm-hmm.
but it's going to slowly move towards voice. And I think we'll begin to see that more and more as we move forward. And I know a lot of teams at Amazon are working on it. You may have heard of Alexa Plus.
Right.
Alexa Plus is a application that is familiar to most folks. There are about 600 million Alexa devices in a B2C context,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of those things are going to be changing for a B2B context as well. So I'm very excited for the future.
Beautiful, beautiful. I think that is very powerful. I think the way you've put it, right? I think the mode of transportation from, I think the analogy that you gave from point A to point B, there are different modes, different ways of how you do. In the same way, when you're communicating with a system or an application, there are different ways, and how voice mode can really, really influence in an agentic world. So that is beautiful. I think before I before I let you go, I think one other important thing I want to bring up is, I know if if you want to leave our audience with one key takeaway from this agentic blueprint white paper, or even forget about the white paper, agentic way of doing things, what would that be, and what are your thoughts?
Yeah, one key takeaway. That's a important one. I feel like the expectations from large language models and agentic applications are sky high.
Right.
And if there is one key takeaway, I would urge the audience to experience and build some of these applications on their own.
Mm.
Once you do it yourself, then you realize, okay, it's not actually, going to Mars. It's actually
Rocket
going
science.
to, yeah, it's actually going just to a nearby store. It's got a definite value, but it's not what everybody's thinking. Automatically, something is going to happen. No, it takes a lot of effort. So I would urge the audience to maybe take part in local hackathons, try out say Strands SDK, try out some of these model providers from Amazon Bedrock and Anthropic, and just build something. Think of some personal problem that you might be facing. It could be like having a streamlined to-do list.
Right.
Build an application to help you with your own to-do list using some of these LLMs, using some of these agentic frameworks like Strands. When you build it, uh, then you'll realize, okay, it's not what I thought it was,
Yeah.
but it is something that is useful for me. And here is now a grounded understanding of what these applications can be for me. I think
Right.
that would be something I would advise the audience here.
Beautiful. I like it. I like this practical way and the practical approach, Abhi, because that is where I think, irrespective of what tool or what framework you pick up, I think if you first had to go there and try it out, make your get your hands dirty, and then that's when you understand the power of the technology that we are getting in. And I believe there's a lot more to come, and I think the future is exciting. That's what I believe in.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more.
Thanks for your time, Abhi. I think it's amazing and lovely conversation that I had.
Thank you. Thanks again, Raghu, for having me here.
That was a powerful and forward-looking discussion with Abhi Shivaditya, exploring how agentic systems and multi-agent collaboration can redefine the very fabric of enterprise innovation. As we celebrate the 150th episode of Extra AI, it's fitting to share that our white paper, Agentic Blueprint for Enterprises, will soon be available on Shiv, offering a detailed blueprint for organizations ready to embrace the agentic future. Thank you to all our listeners, guests, and collaborators who have been part of this incredible journey across 150 episodes of insight, creativity, and inspiration. This is Extra AI, where we keep decoding the impact of AI on business, society, and the human experience. We'll be back stronger than ever in season 16 with more riveting, thought-provoking, and inspiring conversations that continue to shape the evolving world of artificial intelligence. Until then, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep predicting the future with AI, and stay extra.